Hey everyone, and welcome back. So today we're going to be reviewing the FIFINE H9 headset, which is a headset that can be both used in USB mode or directly through the 3.5mm jack, meaning that it's a headset that can possibly fit in very well with the Nintendo Switch. Now obviously, since we are a Switch-focused channel, I'll be taking a Switch-first perspective to the review, but I will be discussing its performance on other devices as well, so even if you're here not necessarily to use this with the Nintendo Switch, this can nonetheless be a very good review for you. Lastly, before we jump in, I do want to mention that yes, this headset was provided to me by FIFINE for free for review purposes. However, this is not a sponsored video. All findings will be the honest review of this headset, and it'll be pretty obvious as we go through it anyway. So now let's start with a quick unboxing and overview of the headset, and remember, hit that like button and subscribe if you aren't already. So I always like to start by taking a quick look at the box, and I've got to say that for a product in this price range, the box is sort of mid-ranged as well. Now I know a lot of people are going to say it's not the box, but what's in the box that's important. However, it is generally the first impression you'll get of the product. Now, if we look at the side of the box, you actually get a breakdown on how the little remote will help you control the different elements. Now, if we take a look at the other side, we also get that there's a detachable microphone, something I really like, especially if you use a separate mic while gaming. You also have a locking adjustable headband, comfortable and soft material, cozy earmuffs, so just a few qualities. And at the back, we get some rapid specifications and features. The one thing that I'm super interested in testing out is it does say the mic polar pattern is omnidirectional. To me, I would feel like you would rather have a cardioid pattern with this type of microphone, but we'll test it out and see how it works out. Let's crack this open and see what it looks like inside. Well, it really is some no-nonsense packaging because we have the user guide here at the top. This is most likely going to be the USB hub. Yeah, I can already see that that's what's in here. And then we have the headset itself. So really bland, no-nonsense packaging. I would have liked to see a little more padding in the packaging to make sure things aren't flopping around, but overall it all looks in great shape. So now let's get to testing it. Okay, so now we're 3 weeks later, and I want to do a quick overview on the headset. I've had time to do a full review on it, and now I can really talk about the different components, give you its upsides, its downsides, and then we'll go into sound tests and more. Now, one of the first features I want to look at is the fact that the microphone is removable. That's something I like to see on headsets because especially if you're a streamer or just at sometimes if you're using a separate microphone, it's nice to be able to take this out of the way and not have it hanging in front of your face. I also really prefer removable microphones to the ones that fit into the headset. By experience, many times, those break over time. These are far harder to break on average. Now, I'm not going to talk too heavily about the fact that this mic is omnidirectional. We're going to look at that when we talk about the sound test a little bit later on. Now let's talk about the construction of the headset itself. So first of all, the construction of the headset is pretty sturdy. The band doesn't feel like it would take a huge amount of pressure, but at the same time, any normal movements won't snap this thing. It seems very well constructed. Now, if we talk about the padding at the top of the headset, it's sort of a faux leather finish. It's actually pretty comfortable. The padding on the inside is fairly soft and does cushion your head pretty well. It's not the softest I've ever felt, but it is comfortable nonetheless. Now where, however, I do think that the padding is slightly lacking is the padding on the earpieces, which is a little bit too firm and it would just need a little bit more padding. Also, the opening for an over-the-ear headphone is pretty small. And if you have bigger ears, you're really gonna feel them squeezed into the padding. Now I wouldn't quite say that it was uncomfortable to wear, but it could definitely be better, with bigger openings for the ears and a little bit more padding, or at least softer padding. Now, if we take a look at the cable, you basically get about 3 feet of cable coming directly from the headset, ending in a 3.5mm jack. What that means is if you're playing in portable mode, this fits in perfectly. You don't really need any longer than that. But if you're playing in dock mode, you're definitely not going to want to use the 3.5mm jack because the cable is probably not going to be long enough. But either way, it doesn't really matter. You're not supposed to. That's where the USB sound card extension comes in, and that one offers a heck of a long cable. Now, before we jump over to the USB sound card, there is one major flaw I want to go over on the headset, and that's the fact that we have no sound or mute controls directly on the headset. All those are available, but they are on the USB extension. The problem is that if you're using this in handheld mode with your Switch, the volume control is not that much of an issue. You can control it directly from the Switch, and you're most likely already going to have that in your hands, so you can get by with that. The problem really is the fact that you can't mute the headset in any way directly on it. And that for me is a problem because especially if you're playing on an open channel or you don't want to have to play on push to talk, it's gonna become an issue. And ultimately, the reason why it's like this most likely is that this was a headset that was primarily designed to be used in USB. And you'll see as we go through this review, there are multiple signs pointing to that. Now here we have, as I said earlier, the USB sound card and extension, and I've got to tell you, it's a long cable. Together with the headset, you've got easily over 10 feet of cable, so if you are playing in dock mode with your Switch, you can most likely plug this in and play from a couch, as long as you're not sitting like 15 to 20 feet away. Secondly, when you actually plug your headset into this USB sound card, it becomes surround sound 7.1 compatible. Now that does not work and you do not have access to it unless you're using this USB sound card extension. It can also be deactivated with the press of a button in the center here, where it will light up red when the surround sound is off. Lastly, when you're using this in USB mode, with this little remote, you can also control both the volume of your microphone and the volume of your headset. And on the side here, there's a quick toggle to mute your microphone, as well as this can be clipped pretty easily to a lot of things. Overall, for the price, it's actually a pretty decent package. The only question is, does it really work well with the Switch? Well, that's what we'll figure out during the review. So now we're getting to one of the most important parts of the video, the sound test of the microphone on the headset. Now I'm going to be comparing it to two other headsets. I could have done more than two, but to be honest, I really think that this gives a really good overview of the overall performance, comparing it to two other models, one cheaper, one slightly more expensive. Also, about halfway through each one of the sound tests, anyway, I'll say it during the sound test, I'll start mashing on my 8BitDo Pro 2, holding it in a natural fashion over my lap like I would when I'm gaming, and basically mashing on the buttons in a normal way as if I was playing something like Mega Man and mashing out the Buster. Now the reason for that is to test out if the headset picks up a lot on the button presses, because obviously if you're talking and people can't hear you because all they're hearing is the button presses, that isn't something you want generally in the microphone on a headset. Secondly, I'm also going to be testing out the button presses while being silent, because at the same time, if you're on an open channel talking with friends, and you're not actually saying anything at one moment, you don't want the button presses drowning them out either. So we're hoping that some of these headsets do reject some of the unwanted sounds that are coming from other directions. So now with the ground rules out of the way, let's jump into those sound tests. So first, I'm going to be starting out with a sound test using my Shure MV7, the actual studio mic that I use to record my videos. Now, this is a totally unfair test comparing this to the microphones, but like I said, it's only to set a baseline so that when you hear the headsets, you can sort of hear the difference when you're talking into a headset compared to a high quality mic. So this is the sound test for the Shure MV7. Can you hear my voice clearly? Is my voice distinctive? Can you hear everything that I'm saying properly? And can you also hear when I'm pressing buttons on a controller at the same time as I'm talking? Are the button presses drowning out my voice, or can you still hear me clearly? And here is the sound of button pressing when I am silent. So next on the sound test, we'll be testing out the PDP Level 40, which is probably one of the most common wired headsets that you'll find sold specifically for the Switch. And this is how my voice sounds in the PDP Level 40. Can you hear my voice clearly? Is it distinctive? Can you make sense of what I'm saying? This is the sound test for the PDP Level 40. And now, this is the sound test of the PDP Level 40 while I'm pressing buttons on a controller. Can you hear the button presses? Are they drowning out my voice? Or can you still hear me clearly while I'm pressing buttons on a controller? And here is the button presses on the controller while I'm being silent. Now next, we'll be doing the sound test of the FIFINE H9 while it's plugged in through a 3.5mm jack. Can you hear my voice clearly? Is my voice distinctive? Can you make sense of what I'm saying? At the same time, how does it sound when I start pressing buttons on a controller? Are the button presses drowning out my voice, or can you still hear my voice clearly? And here are the button presses while I'm being silent. Now next, we're going to do a second test on this headset when it's connected through USB, because it's an important test. Pay attention, listen to the sound. Now this is the sound test for the FIFINE H9 when it's plugged in using its USB sound card. So is my voice clear? Is my voice distinctive? Can you hear what I'm saying properly? At the same time, when I start pressing buttons on a controller, can you hear the button presses? Are the button presses drowning out my voice, or can you still understand me clearly? And lastly, here is a test when I'm being silent. Can you hear the button presses on the controller? Now lastly, to round off the sound test, we'll be using the Razer Black Shark V2, the 3.5mm edition, which is a headset designed to be used with 3.5mm in a similar price category than the FIFINE, however a little bit more expensive. Now, can you hear my voice clearly? Can you make out the words I'm saying properly? And at the same time, if I start pressing buttons on a controller, can you hear those button presses at the same time as I'm talking, or can you still hear what I'm saying clearly? Now, if I'm quiet, can you hear the button presses when I'm silent? Now, what did you think about those sound tests? The one thing it told me, at least, is that whether you're using it in 3.5mm or in USB mode, the microphone performs decently. However, it also does perform a lot better in USB mode, which, as I said from almost the beginning of this review, really shows you that this headset was primarily designed to be used with the USB sound card. And don't get me wrong, even in 3.5mm mode, this headset held its own compared to the other two. Even I would say I preferred this one to the Razer. The Razer's microphone, the sound it captures is a little bit too overpowering. You can tone it down on a computer, but when you're using it like directly on a Switch or something like that, it can't really be toned down. But where I was really disappointed, however, in the performance of this headset was the sound rejection on the button presses in that 3.5mm mode. I said it at the beginning of the review, I found it weird that they were putting an omnidirectional mic on a headset. However, you can see that they designed it around the sound card to do the sound rejection, which then makes a lot more sense. So now I get to the hardest part of the review, which is where I talk about the sound that comes out of the headset. Because unfortunately, I can't have you all hear that part, so you have to trust what my ears heard. And unfortunately, it was the same story as with the microphone. There was a huge gap in performance, whether I was using the 3.5mm jack or whether I was using the USB sound card. Where when I was using the USB sound card, the sound coming from this headset was probably the best of the three headsets that we tested in today's video. even easily rivaling the more expensive Razer headset. Now, the bass was maybe a little bit lower in this headset, but I'm not a person who likes over powerful bass, so I didn't have a problem with that. And I would say the mid and high range sounds were even clearer in this headset when using the USB. However, when using the 3.5mm jack, we were almost all the way down to the level of sound coming from the PDP headset, which isn't bad sound, it's just very basic sound, and it's a sound that will sound dirty at times. Like you'll hear a little bit of fuzziness to the sound. And that's why, as I said at the beginning of the review, this puts this headset in a little bit of a weird spot for the Nintendo Switch. Because most people using a headset with the Switch want to use it in handheld mode. And in handheld mode, you unfortunately get the worst performance from the earphones as well as from the microphone. And at the same time, you have no access to an actual mute button directly on the headset, and the volume has to be controlled from the Switch. That's a lot of downsides when if you look at something like the PDP headset that's lower, you have volume control from it, you have mute control directly on the headset as well, and on top of it, the sound is comparable. But at the same time, even though the microphone isn't at its best in 3.5, this headset does have a better microphone than the PDP, however. The PDP's microphone is just a little bit too quiet. However, if you're a person that's looking for a headset that can transition from a really decent headset when using it through USB in dock mode, and at the same time when you need it in handheld, then this headset makes sense. I just don't think it's going to be the main public out there looking for a headset for the Switch that is looking for a headset to play in dock mode. And in the end, that's where I think it leaves us for this headset. It's a decent headset for the price point. However, by trying to be a jack of all trades and depending heavily on its USB sound card, it has unfortunately hamstrung itself in 3.5mm mode. So you really have to ask yourself, what are you buying this headset for? If you want to be able to use it with a variety of different devices, like a PC, like your PS5, well then it's going to be a great choice because you're primarily going to be depending on USB mode. However, if you're looking specifically for an on-the-go headset that you're going to be using with your Switch only in handheld mode, I would go towards something different, a headset that was specifically designed to be primarily used with a 3.5mm jack. So do keep your eyes peeled on the channel for the next few weeks or months, because I do plan on looking at other headsets, especially wireless headsets that are compatible with the Switch, since we have our Bluetooth audio unlocked now. So if you're looking into this, keep an eye out on the channel. It's something I really want to dive into in 2024 because I have a sneaking suspicion the next successor to the Switch might go in the same direction as this one, so we'll be set up for success. Now don't forget, on the way out, if you did like the video, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you aren't already, click on that notification bell, and as usual, I hope I'll see you in my next video.